What's doing, everybody? Welcome to the channel. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you. If you've never been here before, I survived 17 years in the New York prison system. I've been home for 12 years. Everybody else, welcome back to the channel. That was in the New York prison system that I did time. Places like Sing Sing, Attica, Mid-Orange, Wallkill, Mid-State. I was in 9 different prisons during the 17 years. This video today is going to be about how I started helping the youth, how I started trying to direct the youth away from a negative lifestyle while I was incarcerated. So let me get right into the story. And it's something that I do today, something that I'm concentrating on today, on helping the youth live a better life and refrain from ending up in the prison system, refrain from ending up as an addict addicted to drugs, refrain from a life of pain. That's my goal, is to have youth, young adults, and even adults change any negative behavior and live in the right way. So let me tell you how it started. It started when I was incarcerated and I discovered a program called YAP. YAP is the Youth Assistance Program. And I was in Mid-Orange Correctional Facility when I discovered this, and I decided to write a letter to the person in charge. It was the deacon, the religious deacon inside of the prison. He was the one that ran the YAP program. And so I wrote a letter and I sent him the letter and told him I would be interested in participating in this program. No response. I waited a few weeks, maybe a month. I didn't receive any response from him. So I wrote him another letter. Dear Deacon, my name is Joseph. I'm interested in helping the youth in the Youth Assistance Program. I'd like to participate. Please get back to me. And no response again for a month or two. So at this point, I think I may have even sent a third letter or a fourth letter, and I realized I wasn't getting any leeway. So I didn't know what was going on. So I spoke to my buddy Anthony, really good dude. And Anthony was in the program. He was a prisoner. And I said to him, listen, what's happening? What's going on? How come this guy hasn't responded to me? And so he tells me the story that a certain group of prisoners basically have the youth assistance program locked down. And to be honest, it was a group of Muslim prisoners. And what they did was they figured that if they were in the youth assistance program, it would look better for them at their chances of parole. In other words, when they go to the parole board, they can tell the parole board, listen, I participate in the youth assistance program. I'm trying to help teenagers. And they thought that that would influence the parole board to help them get released. And so because of that, they were getting their own friends inside of the program, and they didn't want to let any outsiders in. Anthony was one of the old timers that was in the program, and they even wanted him out, but he was there so long that he was able to stay. The reason they were able to get away with this is because one of the guys that was in the program that was doing this, that was trying to keep everyone out, was the deacon's secretary. And so when he would receive the letters in the mail of people requesting to get in, right in the garbage. So basically they had this program locked down, and I really didn't have much of a shot. I really wanted to get in this program. So what I did then was I wrote a letter to what's called the Deputy Superintendent of Programs. This is the person that's in charge of all programs inside of the prison. And her name was Catherine. And I write her a letter and I don't say anything about with the knowledge that I acquired. I just say, I would like to participate in this program. I've been writing letters for 6 months. I don't seem to receive any answer. Is it possible we can meet and speak about getting into this youth assistance program? And she writes me back and she says that I am invited to a group meeting that they are having on Friday night. And if I want to attend the group meeting, I'm more than welcome to participate. And so Friday night, I know all the guys that are in the program are not going to be happy when they see me walk in the room, right? And Friday night, I walk in the room, and who's in this room are the 10 prisoners that are that participate in the youth assistance program, the deputy superintendent of security, who's like the third most powerful person inside of the prison, the superintendent, which is also known as the warden, and a few other people are in there, staff wise. So there's about 15, 16 people in the room. And when I walk into the room, everybody is seated already. And before I even take a seat, Catherine, the superintendent of security, says to me, uh, who are you? And I says, I'm Joseph. I'm the man that wrote you a letter. She said, you would like to participate in this program? I said, yeah, I want to participate in the program. She says, okay, let me hear what you got. She just put me right on the spot. Nobody told me what area I should speak in, how I should speak, what specific agenda I should, talk about. It was just, I was just put right on the spot when I walked in the room. She goes, let me hear what you got. And I went right into my routine, a routine that I had never practiced. I just said, would you like me to speak to you like you're a group of adults, or would you like me to speak to you like you're a group of antisocial youth? She said, speak to us like we're antisocial youth. And without hesitation, I went right into it. How are you? My name is Joseph. I said, and I went into my story. And what I did was I took them through a journey of all the bad choices and decisions I made, why I made them, what I should have done differently. And I ended as a motivational speaker. I can't tell you the whole story right now because it'll take 20 minutes, a half hour and that's how long I spoke for about 20 minutes or a half hour. And I gave an honest, true story of my life. And when I looked across the table, Catherine, the deputy superintendent of security, was crying. She had tears falling out of her eyes. And she took me outside in the hallway and she said, I would like you to run this program from now on. Would you be interested in doing that? I says, absolutely, 100%. She says, come down here tomorrow. We're going to have a group meeting. So the next day I go down there and there's the 10 prisoners who are sick to their stomach, right? And to be honest, I don't care. I don't give a shit, right? Because let one of them say something to me. One thing I'm not is a pushover. They got a beef, we could have a beef. We go down there and I'm taking over this program. And they're not happy about it at all. So the dep turns around and says to me, what do you suggest we should do with this program? I said, I would like to hear each one of these 10 prisoners speak just as if they were speaking in front of the groups of youth. And let's see how talented they are. Let's see if it's worth it to keep them inside of the program. To make a long story short, after the 10 prisoners each went up one at a time and gave their spiel, it was time to get rid of 8 of them. 8 of them did not know how to speak properly. 8 of them had absolutely no message for the youth. 8 of them had no way to inspire anyone. They were just in that program for the parole board. They didn't care about saving youth. They cared about getting their ass out of prison. So I said, listen, these 8 guys got to go. They got to go, right? And 2 of them were really good, right? This guy, John, was really good. And one other guy was really good. One focused on peer pressure, the other one focused on addiction, and they were good. So 8 of them had to go. And obviously, those 8 guys were really, really tight. But as I said, I didn't give a shit. And I was ready if they wanted to bring any type of beef with me. Right. And so I said, now we have to have tryouts. Let's put a flyer throughout the prison. Anyone that wants to try out for the program, for the youth assistance program, let's bring them down here. Let's interview them. And that's what we did. And I created a team. And I thought it would be fair to have, out of the 10 guys, we were creating a 10-man team. I thought it would be fair to make it racially um, even. And so what I did is I said, let's get out of the 10 guys, let's get 4 black guys, let's get 2 Spanish guys, and let's get 2 white guys. If we can find an Asian guy, I wanted to mix it up, right? Because the population of the juveniles that were coming in to the prison, I'll get to that, to where they came from, right, was a mix. And so we needed to be a mix. They just had 10 black Muslim prisoners down there. And so when Spanish guys and white kids came in and Asian kids came in, and they didn't have that bond, they didn't have that commonality between one another, right? And you wanted everyone to understand and feel one another. You follow what I'm saying? And so I made the group diverse. I built a diverse group. And then I trained, I said each one of us needs to be trained in all areas. In other words, everyone needs to be trained to speak on drug addiction. Everyone needs to be trained to speak on peer pressure, on gang violence, on prison reality, on the importance of education. And I created the subject matter. I wrote it all out. Excuse me. I wrote it all out on my typewriter. I asked the guys to study it. I had a group of guys that were pretty interested in making a difference in it. And so the program started to roll. The Deputy Superintendent of Security started to invite more groups in. The groups that were coming in were between the ages of about 11 years old to 17 years old. And they were coming from juvenile detention centers. They were coming from rehabilitation hospitals. They were coming from group homes. They were just coming from programs for antisocial youth. They were coming from military academies. And the next thing you know, the program starts to increase tremendously. And I was running the group. So when the groups would come in, I would take the stage and I would introduce the program and explain what we do. I would introduce the guys one at a time, and then I would do my own spiel as well and minister to these kids about the right way to live, about living with proper morals, about living with proper values, about refraining from drug addiction. We created a solid youth assistance program. We started to get some notoriety. In other words, people were talking, and we started to get busier and busier. And one day, the Dep of Security came to me and said, "Listen, I have a group coming in, and would you be interested in going down there and speaking to this group alone?" And I said, "Sure, yeah, that's not a problem if that's what you want me to do." She said, "Yeah, I just think they really need to hear from you. And I'm not patting myself on the back. I'm telling you what happened." And so I went down there and I addressed the group. And I stood on stage and I spoke to about 60 people for an hour. And they loved it. And this became the theme. What I mean is, most of the time, she would ask me to go down and speak to these groups alone, and or with one other individual. And I would go down there either with myself or with my one partner, the other guy that was in the group that was really, really good. And we spent a lot of time counseling the youth. And in the 5 years that I was in the program, in this particular facility, I spoke to at least 20 to 30,000 at-risk youth. They would come in groups of 20, sometimes in groups of 50. And I started speaking to adult groups as well. The Deputy Superintendent of Security started having groups of social workers come in to listen to me, groups of educators, school teachers, people that worked with antisocial youth. Because part of my story, I was versatile. If I was speaking to groups of juvenile delinquents, I would speak about motivation and how to motivate them. But if I was speaking to a group of social workers or educators, I would tell them why I made the decisions that I did, what I learned about myself psychologically that made me misbehave, and explain to them how I felt that they should interact with troubled youth. I explained the things that I needed that were absent in my life growing up that I believed would have made a difference. And so this caused me to study psychology inside of my cell. I would sit in my cell and every night study child psychology, human behavior, abnormal behavior, something called logotherapy from Viktor Frankl. I would read Freud. I would read all types of psychology to understand human behavior, to comprehend why we make the decisions that we make. And I would take that information and try and put it forth in my speaking to save the youth. And it also inspired me to create my own youth program. And for when I would be released, I said, this is something I want to do when I go home. This is something that I would like to do maybe for the rest of my life. And I sat in my cell for years and I broke down a manual. I wrote a manual. Let's see if I have one here, right? This is the manual that I wrote. Right? That's my manual. I sat in my cell and I wrote that over years. And what I would do is write it and then I would type it out and edit it and type it. And to give you an example of what's in the manual, I have, obviously things like a preface and a table of contents and endorsement letters and introduction. But what I really speak on is if I have here, I'm sorry for the delay. I guess it doesn't even matter. So what I have here is my a greeting to the people, table of contents, my introduction, endorsement letters, a program overview, my philosophies and objectives, the core curriculum of the program, and then where the topics I would speak on: prison reality, peer pressure, the importance of education, drug use, goal setting and motivation, anti-aggression and impulse control, and morals. And I would always end as a motivational speaker. And so after I created this manual, I would send it to my mother, who would then do it on the computer. And when I was released, I went and had it professionally bound. I had it binded into a pamphlet, and I would send it and physically drop it off. I drove around to high schools, detention centers, rehabs, group homes, and I would get invited in to speak in these various facilities. I was doing it on a volunteer basis. A couple of the places did pay me, but it was very hard to get in the door to many of them. To be honest, not easy to just get people to invite you in to address the student body, and so it would take a lot of selling. I did it for years. I've spoken dozens of various institutions. I had a eighth grade teacher who became the director of a college. He was bringing me into the college to address the student body, to address the teaching body as well. And for those, I was getting paid. And then COVID hit and shut everything down. And even before COVID, I ended up getting married, and I kind of abandoned this dream that I had for two reasons. One, I was concentrating on supporting uh, or taking care of the house that I lived in and my wife and her children. And so that was part of the reason I stopped concentrating on it. The other reason was that it was very difficult to survive financially off of it. And I kind of moved in another direction, unfortunately. And I let it go. I let it go. And so, for those of you that have followed my channel and know my story, um, I recently am in the middle of a divorce and moved into a new apartment. And so I said, what would I like to do with my life? What would I enjoy doing? What would I love doing? And of course, it would be saving these youth. And I wanted to give you the story about how it all started. So I'm going to give it a shot again, as I'm also looking for a regular job to survive financially. But hopefully, I can get paid for doing what I love. This morning, I woke up, I contacted another four high schools. And I sent them to a website and I tried to sell myself to them. Hopefully, I hear back from them. Yesterday, I did another three. Today, I did four. That's seven places I contacted in 2 days. I'm going to keep going and let's see what happens. I'm grateful for those of you that have helped support me through this. Anyone else that would like to help support me, as I said, there's a PayPal link on my channel. You can help. You can help me in any way that you see fit. It's always appreciated. But I am on a mission to make this happen, and I figured I would tell you the story of how it all started, how I got into saving the youth. The best part for me is receiving letters from the youth afterwards, talking about how I changed their life, talking about the fact that what I said to them has made a difference. I have a ton of those letters. I have a ton of those letters in my filing system. Those are some of the things that are the most important thing in the world to me, is receiving a letter from the youth telling me that what I said to them, the seeds I planted inside of their head, are starting to grow. And that means the world. So hopefully I can really make this happen. But let me get my day started, guys. All my best. You take care, and I will make another video soon. Take care.